Hello and welcome to this month's drawing tutorial. This month we're going to draw a baby with his eyes open, and the head is slightly tilted, so it's going to be a difficult one. So the first step is to frame in your reference material wherever you need to edit to make the strongest composition. Then measure to make yourself some even, crisp, clear marks like a mini grid around the outside of that frame. I have the top divided into 1, 2, 3, and the sides divided into A, B, C, D, and E. Then I measured and made a proportional frame on my drawing paper, and I divided the outside of the drawing paper into those same marks. So now I can extend 3 and A, for instance, and find that that's about where the side of the head should meet. So I'm going to use those outer marks that way to lay down the largest shapes of the picture. If I put a little notch at the top of the head, which I figure out from looking at my graph, that's that 2 and halfway between top and A, I'll do that same thing to develop the side of the head. The top of the ear is right here at B. And then when I have a few of those points marked down, I can connect them using light strokes like this with my charcoal pencil. Importantly, I'm paying attention to both the alphabet and the numerical lines. So I know that this wrinkle on the blanket is right above D, but I need to look up here to see how far in it goes. That's about to the 1 point. 1 and right above the D. So then I come to here, 1 and right above the D, and that's where I place it on my page. Between C and D and at the 2 point is the hand. So I'm just going to start to sketch it in. So at first, I'm just focusing on getting the hand large enough, and it doesn't look very much like a hand. It looks just like a little club here. But you keep your shapes vague to begin with, and your lines sketchy, so that it's going to be easier to make changes, both psychologically and physically. Start out sketchy, start out loose, and then it's just no big deal at all to go in, erase mistakes, and get them going in the more accurate direction before you get too far and too involved in the lines. And then once you start getting some of your large shapes more accurate, you can refer to those shapes as well as the graph to place the remaining shapes. So here, if I draw a straight line from the fingertips up, I have an intersection point right here. I can do that once I have those other lines placed on this hand. And then after I have those large shapes accurate, I'm going to draw some guidelines on the face to draw the features on the face. So here, if I go to my reference material and I have an arcing line that goes from C to B, I can draw where those eyes should fall. Same thing for the guideline for the nose. And now I'll just give myself some really quick, vague guidelines for where these features are going to lie on the face. This is the eye, this is the nose, this is another eye up here. Then after I have the nose vaguely in place, you see, I go back and I put in those details with more accuracy. If you were going to break down where to spend your time on a drawing, 80% is right here. It's not about the shading. It's about this initial drawing and getting it absolutely accurate. So let me take some time off camera now, and I'll come back to you when this is pushed up to a greater level of realism. Now I've put the time into making the layout accurate, so I can push forward to step 2, which is to start adding some tone. Now divide in your mind tone into 2 different components. There's skin tone and there's shadow tone. So the first thing you have to do is put down a layer of skin tone so that the skin doesn't come out paper white. The skin tone is easy to put on. I'm going to start at the top, and since I'm working in charcoal to make this easier to see, I'm just going to work really, really lightly. If I press down at all, that charcoal is going to bite into the paper and make it really hard to blend smooth. So cover all of the skin with this first pass. When you've covered the skin with tone, use a chamois cloth, wrap it around your finger, and blend that smooth with circle strokes. The most important thing to remember is that the skin tone remain very, very smooth without any sign of pencil line. This is the base on top of which we're going to do all of the developed line and shadow work. Now go back in And protect the parts of the drawing that you're not working on with a clean piece of paper, and just strengthen some of those lines that might have gotten washed out in the blending process. I'm only going to bring out a line here and there where I need to make sure that I get the features the right shape. It's important not to think of anything you do in portrait drawing as outlining, because remember, there are no lines on the face. There are only contours and shadows, and sometimes those contours give us the appearance of lines, but our faces aren't drawn. They're three-dimensional. Now, the skin tone is down, and I can start to add some of the lines on top of the skin tone and some of those shadow shapes. So this step is really two things in one. I'm going to add some lines in the hair, but by adding the lines, I'm also giving the direction for the shadows that go on the head here. So here, let me show you what I mean. I'll add a few directional strands, but then I'm just going to fill in with some dark tone in the direction of the hair growth. And then I can use a large stomp or tortillon and blend that dark tone in order to develop the hair. After blending once, I'm going to go back and bring out some sharper lines to develop some more precise hairs on top of that shadow. I'm also going to do that same kind of work in the face. I'll start by drawing a little bit of detail, like where the pupils are, fill in some tone, then use the tortillon, circle stroke around and darken that tone and smooth it. Then I'll go back in a second time and darken up on top of it. If that highlight gets covered up a little bit, just use your kneaded eraser, blot it out again. And I might need to downsize into a smaller tortillon so I can get into those little areas with more precision. And when you're making portraits, the key is to put the line down as a line, but then blend one side of it out so that you keep the division from one contour to the next, but you erase the presence of the line. I'm going to do similar work in this eye, darken up some of these tones, use a small tortillon to blend those out, and then if I need to go back in and darken up some tones again on top, I can do that. Okay, so this is the process. I'm going to go from feature to feature and work it up one level. So let me just bump all of the features up to this level of completion, the same level that I've done on the eye, and then I'll come back to you and show you how to push it forward further. I have the first pass done here, so I'm going to simply do the same thing, but now that I'm more confident in my shapes, I can add some more darks. So I'll add some additional darks here, in the nostrils, in the eyes, in the lips. I can darken by the side of the nose. Once I have that darkened up, I'll go in with little circle strokes and blend that shadow out, just like this. Now when I get to the side of the face, there's a strong shadow here, so I'm going to lay that in with a charcoal pencil, just putting up and down strokes like this. I'm not scribbling. I'm going in one direction so that I have the most control possible. So I'm carving out the shape of the cheek at the same time that I'm adding that additional shadow shape to the blanket on the side of the face here. Once you're sure of the shapes, don't be afraid of darkening up some of those tones. While I have a dirty stomp from blending that, I can go back in and add some additional tone here and there where I need it, so I can add tone to the portrait without having the pencil involved at all. Now I'm polishing up this shadow on this side of the face, moving from one contour to the next. Moving down into the hand, I'm going to do the same work. Then, once I have the tone down, I can do two things. I can strengthen some lines the same way that you've seen me do before. Then I can also pick out those tiny highlights on the fingernail and the edge of the finger using my kneaded eraser. There are also some areas like that in the nostril and in the eyelid. In order to get those satin effects, I first need to have some tone over everything. So I put the tone down following those shapes of the contours. So I'll put down the mid-tone and blend that. On top of that, I'll put the darks, and then I can pluck out some highlights. And then with my kneaded eraser, I come back and I pluck out some brights. And I can go back over the top and add some more hairs to the head, focusing now more on the pattern that I see on this actual baby. If I need to darken up areas, I can do that by just pressing a little bit harder with the pencil. So I'm going to follow that step and do that same sort of work over the entire portrait, just polishing it up to the next level, and I'll come back and show you how to do the finishing touches. Alright, we're starting to get there now. I want to work on that hand. But here I'm going to start to develop the shadow shapes because I'm secure that the shape and the size of the hand is accurate. So now I'm just going to go around the hand and darken up a few of these interior lines where I see dark shadow, and then I blend one side of that line out using my stomp. Little circle strokes like this will blend that tone into the rest of the surrounding flesh tone. Now after blending these tones with my stomp, I'm going to get that kneaded eraser and highlight one side of those lines. It's very, very subtle. And then I'm going to do the same sort of work and show you how to finish up this satin blanket. Satin is pretty easy to draw because I just have to look for the shapes of the shadows. Here I'm still using my grid point, so I have this shadow that starts right around the A point, and I'll just draw the outline, the shape of this, and then I can fill it in with circle strokes from my pencil, and then start to develop some of those other shadows beside it. And I'm going to develop those shapes all around the satin binding. Then I will take my large stomp and I will smooth and blend in those shadow shapes just like this. When I need to darken up areas, I'll pick up my pencil and just add a bit more tone on the side here. And then I will take that kneaded eraser again, and I will look at the reference material for the light struck shapes, and I will pull them out with my kneaded eraser. So that's the steps I'm going to follow to finish this baby portrait up, and I'll come back to you one last time to show you the finished product. Okay, here's my finished drawing. There's the top down to the bottom. So that from start to finish is how to draw a realistic portrait of a baby with the face turned, including different textures in blankets, something soft and something shiny. I'm going to upload the reference material so you can try your hand at drawing this exact same baby, and I hope that you'll join me next month for another tutorial in drawing realistic portraits. Thanks so much for watching.